And we're back. Hello! It's not the same if Jen's not here just yet, but Jen will hopefully be along. So good evening, and at a very unique time, guys. It is generational change. It is Monday. And for those of you who have tuned in from Status Coup, thank you very much. It's great to see you all here in the chat. A lot of regulars, a lot of, where's Jen? Jen Colanello is actually in Georgia and now North Carolina. So Jen actually drove up over the weekend to be at Cop City for the Stop Cop City event that took place today. A lot of interesting things took place, and hopefully she'll be on in a little while. It was quite a drive. She drove from Atlanta out to Asheville, North Carolina this afternoon. So I don't know if she decided to take a little snooze for a little while, but hopefully she will be joining us shortly. So obviously, Tony, great to see you. And for those of you who may or may not know this, and this is very important, especially those who are coming over from Status Coup, we are a demonetized channel. To this day, we don't know why we are demonetized. We happen to be very fortunate here on this channel that our producer is Colin, the same for Status Coup, and he has done what he can to try to get the information regarding why we were suspended, or I call it suspended, it's the same thing, but why we were demonetized in the first place. We can't get a straight answer. They're not going to tell us why we were demonetized. Instead, they just play this game of, oh, well, it didn't seem like you did anything wrong, but it's going to take a while to reinstate you. And so they said that it would be 3 months before you can apply to be reinstated again. And so now we're applying to be reinstated, and they say, and then it'll take another month before you get approved, if you get approved. So we've accepted the fact that there are forces out there. Jen has a theory as to who's responsible. Why is it that our channel would be demonetized? Well, when you speak truth to power, you end up pissing off a lot of people. And that is something that we seem to have been making a habit out of. And so as a result, our channel does not get anywhere near the traction that it could because the financial component has been removed. Now, with that said, I'm not one to advocate for the super chats because of how much Google, YouTube, same thing, ends up taking. But if you are so inclined, if you go to patreon.com/generational change, for as little as $5 a month, you can become a supporter of our small but mighty channel, as we like to say. $10 a month, still try to figure out exactly what it's going to be in terms of what that will get you. But if you are a $25 a month patron, as you guys know, we have our shirts. We have our Generational Change jersey. It's really awesome, silky smooth. Baseball jersey, tri-blend. And then, of course, we have our purple special, straight purple, Generational Change. So for anybody who ultimately becomes a $25 a month patron, or don't have to donate $25 a month if you don't want to, you can just go to Cash App, $GenChange. The great thing about doing this is that the money goes directly to the show and doesn't get siphoned off by Google. So any amount you can contribute obviously makes a significant difference for our channel. And so what I'm going to do tonight, because I want to give you guys the opportunity to throw some ideas in our direction, because I think it's fair, only fair, that we are going to talk about some things that, you know, on a show like tonight, like I said, Jen is not in town. She's going to try to hop on for a little while and talk about her experience at Cop City. But we do have some interesting stories that I think are of great importance. And where I'm going to start, and I think that this is important for anyone who's been paying attention to what's been going on in the media. We're in a very unique place right now where people are kind of getting backed into a corner regarding Israel Palestine. There are those who want to speak up about the issue, but either are too afraid to speak up, their opinion may not jive with the powers that be, because we all know the people who have the most power in this country are in favor of what Israel is doing right now, for one reason or another. But then occasionally you'll get somebody who steps up and does the right thing and will speak truth to power in a way that is absolutely necessary in this moment. And one of those people who decided to speak up and speak real truth to power, maybe somewhat surprisingly, but maybe somewhat unsurprisingly, because occasionally he does nail it right on the head. And that is John Oliver. But is it really any surprise? I often say that a lot of times the best opinions we get about our politics in this country, especially on the more neoliberal type channels, tend to be from people that are not from this country. Every once in a while, Mehdi Hassan will have a good take. Every once in a while, Ali Velshi will have a good take. In this case, every once in a while, John Oliver has a pretty good take. And here's what he had to say about Israel Palestine. Let's stop equating Israel and Hamas. That's what the media wants you to believe, but it's really Israel Palestine. Here's what he had to say.
But perhaps the most surprising way that Netanyahu has actually jeopardized Israel's safety is that for years he deliberately used Hamas as a way to undermine the Palestinian Authority, a rival to Hamas which administers parts of the West Bank and has much more legitimacy on the world stage. Experts say that the idea was basically divide and conquer. If Palestinian leadership remains split and one of the main parties at the table has a terrorism label on it, it's going to be much easier for Netanyahu to refuse to engage with them and say that he has no partner for peace. Here is Smotrich explaining that strategy out loud in 2015.
The Palestinian Authority is a burden, and Hamas is a terrorist organization that no one will recognize and no one will give it status in the ICC. No one will let them lead a decision in the Security Council. The main pitch we are playing now is international delegitimization. Hamas, at this point, in my opinion, will be an asset.
Hamas is an asset. If you are calling the group that has repeatedly killed your people an asset, it shows pretty clearly that what you care about isn't safety, but total control. I'm talking about America, because this country has emphatically picked a side. In recent years, we've given Israel $3.8 billion a year in military aid. And you can make geopolitical arguments for why that is or isn't a valid thing to do, but it means we're heavily implicated in everything you've just seen. Just listen to Bassem Aramin, a Palestinian whose 10-year-old daughter was killed by an Israeli border guard in 2007.
My daughter had been killed with American rubber bullet, unfortunately, from an American M16, unfortunately, from an American Jeep, American uniform. And the soldiers have trained in America. So everything is American.
Right. Everything is American. And I know that is hard to hear. But the fact is, made in America is something that we understandably love to brag about when it's slapped on things that we're proud of. But unfortunately, it's not just tractors, truck nuts and Toby Keith songs. Sometimes it's stuff that's killing people.
That takes a lot of guts. And I'm glad that John did that because, you know, he was willing to say what a lot of people are afraid to say. And it, you know, who's to say that there isn't an executive at HBO that's going to see that clip and say, well, he's out of a job. Pronto. And remember, guys, if you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do. This is going to really help get the channel out to more people, and hopefully they'll be able to see it and, you know, see what our discussions are about. You know, the goal of our show is to transform politics into service. Our goal by constantly talking about what's going on in Gaza is so that more people like John Oliver, who can reach not a few thousand people like we can, but a few million people like he can. And that makes a significant difference because while a lot of people may be paying attention to what's going on, they're getting the story a certain way. Obviously, for the most part, when it's corporate media, they're only getting it one way. John Oliver is going to allow a lot of those comfortable liberals in many instances to pause and think, oh, you know, when you put it that way, you're right. This actually is terrible what's going on. Maybe a ceasefire is the answer to at least till we get things settled. Now, we all know that a ceasefire is only temporary. It's not the end-all be-all to solving all of our problems that we have right now. But it will make a difference. It'll make a significant difference in a lot of people's lives. And I, for one, applaud John for having the courage to do that. Because if you look around at a lot of others in corporate media, They don't have the courage to speak truth to power in this regard. They're not going to say what is necessary. They're going to say what's convenient, what is going to allow them to skate by just a little while longer. Because from a corporate media perspective, everything's all about how do you extend your career for as long as possible. The clip that we talked about briefly on Status Quo a little while ago, with the Jordan and I had broke down, was Andrea Kramer on Andrea Mitchell, Andrea Kramer. My apologies, both to anchors on TV that actually look quite similar. Andrea Mitchell was very tepidly trying to suggest that maybe bombing hospitals with children, infants in them, is not such a good idea. And then you have John Kirby, who's one of the most bloodthirsty neocons that are in politics. It's just, it happens. It's what it is. I really think that the tide is going to turn. But the one thing that I think is different with this particular political scenario than most others, there is no coming back from this. The lines in the sand have been drawn. If you were on the side of what Israel has been doing, if you're not asking questions as to how we got here in the first place, the fact that Gaza is basically an open-air prison, the fact that, or a concentration camp, as Jen likes to say, the fact that the intention of the IDF is to basically mow the lawn completely and eliminate the Palestinian question from Israel and turn it into a Jewish state. This is what it is. This is mass murder in real time. And while a lot of people are looking around thinking, well, how's this going to end? Well, I can assure you that with the people in charge right now, it's going to end worse than you think. It's not just the fact that you have all these people that are being killed right now. It's the fact that you also have wildly spreading disease. Remember, you're talking about people that don't have clean water or food. What do you think is going to happen? Hearing reports of all different diseases, including hepatitis, that's been spreading all over the place. What do you think is going to happen to these people? And not only in terms of the mass genocide, but how many terror cells you think, frankly, how many terror cells have probably already sprung up as a result of what's happened in the last 4 to 5 weeks? It's a big problem. John Oliver shouldn't be the last person that speaks up about this issue. We should be pushing for other people in media to be speaking up. Surprisingly, one of the top people who isn't in corporate media anymore, but has spoken against this massacre, is Tucker Carlson. And kudos to Glenn Greenwald for really pushing him along on this particular issue. But that audience is big, very big. And perhaps there are a lot of people within that audience who will see a different perspective, one that has more humanity to it than genocide. There are a lot of people who also frame it that way. And you see, guys, these are the comments that we have to deal with when it comes to Facebook. I'm sure Steve Stanford is a good guy. He doesn't mean harm. But when somebody says destroy Hamas and there will be peace in the region, I got news for you, Steve. You can't destroy Hamas. Hamas isn't an entity that just exists as one and then you can destroy it. No. Hamas could be ISIS. It could be Hezbollah. It could be any of these organizations who deems Israel as an apartheid state that must be destroyed. So this idea of, well, if we just kill all of Hamas, we can solve the problem. No, you can't. The only way you solve the problem is when the occupation ends. When Israel and Palestine is unified. That's when it ends. And anyone who suggests that it ends any other way, I'm sorry, but you're just not living in the real world. You're living in a comfortable bubble that allows you to say, kill them all, and that's okay. Remember, I'm not a Jew, and it is apartheid. You don't have to like it, but it is. That is what it is. So I would implore people to be a little bit more sensible about what's going on. It's a devastating situation. And I would ask you all, when somebody knows, for example, that 11,000, and that's just what we know on paper. Remember, the one thing about warfare, especially when the information we're being given is being given extremely slanted to one side. Remember, our media is extremely pro-Israel, so we're only getting as much as we could possibly get our hands on. 11,000 dead civilians. That's the basement. That's the lowest number in terms of how many people are dead. It could be 17,000 that are dead now, and we just don't know it. And then there will be a lot more that will die as a result of the famine that will result. People are buried under tons and tons of rock. You can imagine what that's like. I, for one, am not going to be nice about this anymore. I ran into a similar situation with a family member when it came to COVID. You know, there were people during the pandemic that were very afraid, and rightfully so. People didn't know if their immune system could handle such a virus, but we're also a very unhealthy culture. And that had a lot to do with why people died. You know what the number one cause of death from COVID was? Diabetes. Do you know how much diabetes has spiked in this country over the past 30, 40 years? Got kids now getting it. We're unhealthy, we're overweight, we don't work out. And people were scared and didn't know what to do. And because our country has a for-profit health system, the first reaction to what was going on was, take the jab and you'll be fine. Now, I'm not here to tell you that taking the vaccine was a bad thing. No, that's not what I'm doing. What I am saying, though, is when you were told that taking the vaccine would stop the spread, and it was proven beyond any doubt that that was bullshit, and yet the lie kept repeating itself, you understand why people don't trust our government. And they shouldn't. Just like people shouldn't trust the Israeli government. And I question the mindset of each and every person. Forget that it's 11,000 minimum that are dead from a mass genocide, killing. They've dropped more bombs than they did during World War II on Japan. Crazy, but they did. Gaza's been almost completely destroyed. And the tens of thousands of people that are going to die, yes, die, from what's happening, they're going to try to keep it under wraps for as long as humanly possible. And to the people who look around and say, well, we have to kill Hamas. Really? You're really buying that at this point? It's no different than somebody who was stupid enough to believe weapons of mass destruction. I was 19 years old. I was in a lecture hall at Rutgers. And I can remember specifically there was a person in our classroom. And look, at the time, it was such a hot button topic about going into Iraq in the spring of 2003. But the one thing that I remember was one of the people in the classroom saying, we have to go in there because we have to bring them their freedom. Propaganda works on people young and old. And it's working now. And even 20 years later, we have seen incredibly just how devastating that propaganda can be. The same stuff is being reported that there's war of attrition. And yes, there is. There is a lot of war of attrition. Colin, do me a favor. Please send Jen the link. She's going to join us from her phone. Some of it's propaganda, some of it isn't. To suggest that you are going to solve, and I say this to Steve, I say it to anybody. Because remember, guys, Steve is on Facebook. He's not on YouTube. He's not in the chat, so you can't see what he's saying. I have to put it up on the screen. But Steve is basically suggesting that they didn't kill, rape, and kidnap. Again, is it possible that that's happening? Of course. Anybody who's denying that there isn't entrenched warfare going on is a fool. However, if you think that the way that this ends is by flattening Gaza, then don't complain when the entire world turns on the Jewish population. People are not putting up with this. We know what the solution here is. Palestinians do not have equal rights in Israel. And no, Egypt is not obligated to allow them into their country. Just like we're not obligated to allow everybody to come into America. You know, it's beyond the pale how everyone just assumes that you can just pass the problem off to somebody else. 7% of the Gaza population of the Palestinians supported Hamas, and they took control. And you know, very often, you have to wonder if it really is just a case of dehumanization of another kind. We've seen what the IDF has to say. We've seen what a lot of these guys have had to say. There is no denying. Mia, been saying for the longest time, you have to unite the country and you have to end the occupation. Jews, and excuse me, forget Jews, Israelis and Palestinians need to be able to live in the same country, side by side, equal rights, end of discussion. And if there are people who can't accept that reality, then accept the fact that the bloodshed is going to get so much worse. And the worst part of it all, especially with the president we have in the White House right now, if you think World War III is that far off, you're nuts, because it isn't. Did you know the United States is incessantly bombing Syria again? Again? You wait till Hezbollah gets into this. I just feel bad for those who truly have the right mindset about all of this and are willing to ask questions, because that's what you should be doing. You should be asking questions and wondering, how do we make things better? But for the most part, all anybody knows, as Jen likes to say, when all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And right now, that's where we are. My partner in crime, Jen. Hey! Hello.
Hello.
Your connection is horrible.
Look, this is my parents' house. I'm just be glad there's Wi-Fi here.
Well, tell parents hello.
Yes, I will.
So you have had quite the day, to say the least.
Yeah, I've had quite the day. So, guys, I was in Atlanta for a few events for the past few days, getting ready to the action that took place today at Stop Cop City. And it was amazing. I mean, I have some decent video footage. If I could figure out how to get it all put together, we might be able to put something interesting together with it. But yeah, there was tear gas. There weren't any arrests. There were some people that got hurt. It was a little scary. There were some explosive sounds. And the thing that really kind of freaked me out was someone pointed out that they have these like giant, and in some of my pictures, I might be able to show it at some point. These giant, like they look like satellite dishes on top of their tanks, because there was like an army tanks. Like it was ridiculous. I'm walking in a group of people that are chanting, "Love is our strength." And they're staring down tanks and police and riot gear and body armor. And it was ridiculous. But yeah, it was a little scary. And yeah, that's what happened today.
What is the result? Because I know today was supposed to be like a moment of truth, so to speak.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure how it ended today, but you know, this is very scary and people really need to be aware of what's going on here, because there are people, this is not private property. This is public property. And it's just like an example of how horrible like the Atlanta situation is. As my friend and I were walking back to our car, and it was just the two of us. So we're two like over middle-aged women walking with purses. Okay. And we're walking back to the car, and there's two police officers blocking this entrance to the park in which my car is parked on the other side of the park. And this is a public park. And I walk up and he goes, "You're trespassing." And I'm like, "I just want to ask you a question." "You're trespassing." And I'm like, "I just want to ask you a question." He's like, "What?" I'm like, "Well, if my car is parked in here, can I just go through here?" He goes, "No, you're not allowed to go in here. You have to go around." So we have to walk around like a couple of miles around this thing. And so they are literally just sitting there to prevent people from being able to go back to their cars just to be dicks. Like this is the nonsense that these people have been dealing with for 2 years. And one of the women that I saw there was one of the women that they call the elders of the forest. And she is one of 4 women that was arrested. And when I say she's 90, maybe, I mean, like old women, they were sitting in chairs in front of this entrance to this land, which, by the way, again, public property. And they were arrested a couple days ago, these 4 old women, for sitting there trying to protect the forest. And so this is the kind of stuff that we're dealing with here. It's out of control.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people really just kind of, this whole concept about living in the proverbial bubble, as we talk about. It's no different than the way people who are viewing what Israel is doing to Palestine in such a...
Somebody is saying that every Palestinian protest ends in death. First of all, Stephen, you've got to just let it go, man. We're just never going to see eye to eye on this. Sweetheart Mia, I was just at the largest Palestinian protest in this country. There were 300,000 people there and nobody got arrested or hurt. So I don't know what you're watching, honey. Turn off the Fox News. That's all I can say. It's like, what's amazing is that people that never came on and watched before, that are all like freaked out that I'm taking the stand I'm taking. It's like, look, we were all brainwashed the same way, and I've just realized it. And I feel bad that people are stuck in it.
And the other thing that I think a lot of them are really having a hard time wrapping their head around is the fact that you want to free Israel, or you want to free Palestine from Hamas, that ship has sailed. That's long gone.
Talk to the people that gave them Hamas. Let's talk to Netanyahu about Hamas.
Yeah, do you know that Bibi Netanyahu actually funds Hamas? And on top of that, you have, and I was saying before you came on, the baseline. It's not the over-exaggeration. This is the thing about warfare in a country that has only one view of what is happening right now. When they say that 11,000 people have been, that civilians, 11,000 civilians have been killed, that is the basement That is
Yeah.
the low number for how many people have been killed. It could be thousands more, and
Yeah.
thousands more children. I mean, listen, you have seen the video and the documentation of the infants in the incubators in the hospitals being killed. Like,
Yeah.
I don't understand, at what point do you just reject humanity and say, well, the Jews wouldn't exist or Israelis wouldn't exist without this? Well, I can assure you that the more that this goes on, just like the more you police this country, it's not going to get better. You don't make a nation better with more bars, more guards, and more walls.
No, but, and I would suggest to the people that are thinking like about not condemning Hamas, it's like, here's the thing. I want everybody to imagine being born in a concentration camp, and that's all you know in your whole life is being born in a concentration camp. And you might want to think about doing things to escape said concentration camp and get out of it. And you might even feel slightly violent towards your oppressors. That's a very, strong likelihood. So I just think people need to envision that. I don't think people quite grasp that this has been a concentration camp since 2006. So the majority of people that are actually in there were born there. And all they know is that they're born in a concentration camp that they can't escape from. But the thing is this, I will start condemning those things when and if the state of Israel gets in compliance with international law. As soon as the state of Israel gets in compliance with international law, I will be very happy to have like a very reasonable discussion about this. So long as they're in violation of international law, I have nothing to do. I just have nowhere to go with them. So when they get in compliance, then we can talk. So
Michael,
that's where I am.
Michael, if nobody is following if you're not following our Facebook page, if you're not following Jen Perlman on Facebook, I would recommend that you do, because the Israelis have found our page.
Oh, they're going after me. So I get this phone call today. I'm driving from Atlanta to here to my parents' house. And I get this phone call from, I'm going to say it. I don't care. I'm going to give the guy's name. I don't care. He called me.
No. Don't do that. Don't do that. Just
what?
He's
an attorney. He called me as an attorney. Are you kidding me? Of course I can. Scott Kleiman called me, and somehow he's representing JCC. Yes, he's representing JCC and is upset because he said that I posted something claiming to be on the board of JCC, which is absurd. So I called Peter and I'm like, did you maybe by accident, you meant to say JVP and maybe there was an autocorrect and something?
For the audience that's listening, could you please enlighten them as to what the JCC is and what they do?
It's a Jewish community center, and it's a Jewish community center. It's national. They're all over the place. My kids went to preschool there. They've got lots of classes, programs, a nice gym, whatever. It's a JCC, but I'm not on the board, and I've never been on the board. So I thought maybe Peter put JVP, Jewish Voice for Peace. Maybe it was like an autocorrect that changed it to JCC. I'm like, could we have accidentally put out something that said I was on the board of JCC? And he's like, absolutely not. No way. So I finally got the guy to send me the post that they're referring to. I didn't show it to you. I didn't forward it to you. So it's not from us. Somebody took our post, and this is what, and I'm quoting, Jen Perlman, this woman lives here, Davy, all caps, attends every protest against Israel. Boycott her, as I don't know what that means, from the JCC, where she serves. League of Women Voters, co-chair of JCC, Broward, unbelievable, spread as much as possible.
Who is this? What's the person's name?
You can't see it. So the guy the attorney who sent it to me that said this was where they were getting that they thought I posted it. But
I already told you, I'm pretty sure I know who it is. So
well, what I'm telling you is when the picture he sent me, you can't tell, you can't see it. You see?
No, I can.
It's cut off. It's cut off. You don't see who it's from.
Right.
So I don't know who he got it from, but I responded to him. That's not my post. You should follow up with whoever posted this. It's not from my account, but I appreciate the shout out. And then I told him I've never claimed to be affiliated with the JCC. I am a member of the League of Women Voters. And that's all I said. So they've already they're coming at me. And you know what? Good. This is just from last weekend. So they've already only had like a week to be stewing.
Oh, it's going to get worse. Imagine if you were a candidate. Good God in heaven, they would have a cow, and they would have 10 cows. But that's the thing, guys. That's the thing. And I think you can really speak to this, Jen, that I don't think people really understand because of your background, because of the fact that you are a native Jew of North Miami, that this gets to people like them probably more than any person who's a progressive that feels this way about what's going on, somebody who may be a person of color and so forth. But the fact that it's not just one of their own, it's the fact that one of their own Zionists has broken away from the plantation. They cannot wrap their head around it. And every response, listen, the responses have gone from, you're a terrible person, to shame on you, to how could you do this to your own kind?
Yeah. It's amazing. It's how can my own kind do that to other people? Let me tell you something for anybody out there. I am so at peace and resolved at where I am on this, that no matter how angry, how loud, how many Zionist talking points, like it's really just wasting your time. It really is. I am beyond educated on this. I said it like when I started looking into this, people who don't know me, when I start researching, I research. I have been researching this now for the better part of 2 years. I have spent countless hours. I have read so much. I have watched so much. I have interviewed people. I am at a very peaceful place with my position on this. I am happy to share that with people and educate them, but we were lied to. And the sooner people realize that, the better we will all be. Now, I don't know that people will realize that. I know that I'm going to get a lot of shit from this, from where I grow up. I don't care. I always wondered if I was alive during civil rights, would I have done the right thing? Would I have stood up when everybody else in my neighborhood was not with it, and they were thinking that how dare I, like sort of like in The Help, like would I have had the balls to do that? And I don't know, but I know that it could be the hill I die on, and I'm okay with that, because this cannot stand.
Well,
I am not going to stand with this.
Somebody's got to speak up, and it can't just be Rashida Tlaib. Like, that's not enough. Like, you can't just have one person say that this is a mass genocide and somebody has to do something about it.
Yeah. Okay, Stephen, I'm going to put it out there once and for all. The bottom line to me is I don't support theocracies. I don't support ethnic states. In order to have an ethno-state, you must commit an ethno-cleanse. It's the only way it works. It was an epiphany for me. I have been used as a tool of ethnic cleansing. When I went to Israel and I planted trees in East Jerusalem, God knows which poor Palestinians people that property was. We were lied to, we were brainwashed. So no, I don't believe in an ethno-state. I think if everybody can't live together in an actual functioning democracy, then that's just not an actual thing. I just don't support that.
You can have the state of Israel the second that it becomes a unified nation. And we all know that compliance.
Yeah, well, how about just being in compliance with international law? How about that? Here's something that I find fascinating. The amount of people that ask me, does Israel have the right to exist? Here's my answer. No country has a right to exist. Countries don't have rights. People have rights. Countries have obligations to protect those rights. That's how this works. And if you think that you have a right, who grants you that right? Rights don't fall out of the sky. We're not born with rights. That's not a thing. That's not a natural thing. Rights are granted by an authority, by a sovereignty, by some sort of governing body grants us our rights. So for us, it's the Constitution. So from what governing body would be granting Israel its right to exist? Because from where I'm sitting, they're in violation of every UN charter and violation of international law. So if they were going to look to that as to the body that's granting them their right to exist, I would suggest they get in compliance. But otherwise, no, I don't believe any countries have a right to exist. I believe humans have rights. Countries have obligations. And I think that countries have obligations basically they exist at the pleasure of their people. And that's only a democracy if all the people within the territory of that sovereignty get to vote. Otherwise, it's an apartheid state, and it is the last existence of settler colonialism that we're dealing with still in the world. And we are not going to age well with this. We are on the wrong side of history as Jews. I am telling you now, this will not age well.
It's almost like they can't correlate why there's been a spike in anti-Semitism. It's so bizarre. It's so bizarre how they can't figure that out. And listen, Jen, of course, I'm biased for Jen because I think she's been one of the most amazing outspoken people that is from the Jewish community about this issue. But without question, hats off to Katie Halper, who has been doing a phenomenal job of speaking up on this. If you guys haven't seen the live stream that we did with Katie, along with Mark Steiner and Lee Camp, definitely check that out. Yeah, listen, Katie lost her job at the Hill because she was not willing to play ball on this issue. And that takes a lot of guts, whereas a lot of other people are not willing to do that.
Well, the biggest issue that I have with all of this, and make no mistake, is the censorship and the suppression of the resisting voices. So I get that the Zionists truly believe that they're entitled to have an ethno-state. I get that. They believe that they're entitled to that. But does that mean that we should have 26 states in our country that have anti-BDS legislation? So we're not even allowed to use our First Amendment rights and not support the state of Israel? Why does everybody in our country and our government have to sign a blood oath to another country? If we were doing that if it were any other country, you would all be outraged. If people were saying we must stand, it's crazy. We wouldn't do it with any other country, and yet we tolerate this.
Well, not only that, you look at, as you were alluding to, we have this tendency to, again, with the finger pointing. It's like, I'm not touching you. I'm not. Oh, did you see? Oh my God, did you see what they did? And right now, when people are not recognizing that there is, and this is the other problem, and this is the perfect contrast between you and Wasserman Schultz, that is the hill that she wants to die on. She wants to die on this hill of basically being a martyr for the apartheid cause. Like, that is something that she's willing to do. And not only is she willing to do it, but she's willing to put forward legislation stating as such. And as I pointed out earlier, as I pointed out on Status Quo, she and Josh Gottheimer were the ones working behind the scenes to get those 22 total Democrats to send Rashida Tlaib. And
that's a violation of them being fascist about it. It isn't so much, okay, fine, you're a Zionist, you support the state of Israel, that's fine. I don't agree with you. But then now you're suppressing what we're saying, and that's now we're taking our country into this complete fascist place. Oh. It's really freaking scary. And not only, by the way, the Israel lobby has special status. I don't think people understand that. The Israel lobby is the only lobby on behalf of a foreign country that doesn't have to register as a foreign agent in this country.
I mean, explain that one, guys. I mean, come on.
It's absurd. And the reason that they don't have to register as a foreign agent is because if they had to register as a foreign agent, they couldn't be giving the kind of money that they're giving to everybody.
Dave makes a great point. If Desmond Tutu says your state's apartheid, that pretty much ends the argument. And I agree. Ray Affinity, good to see you, brother. I can tell you that I'm not that upset as a Giants fan. I've accepted the fact that this is a throwaway season. We've got to make wholesale changes across the board. I can tell you
ask how my team did yesterday.
Your team didn't play yesterday. You're on the bye.
Oh, okay, good. Okay, Thank you. Sorry.
Jen, of course, is a Dolphins fan. It's been a long time coming for her. It's been a long time coming for the Cowboys. This has been a great season so far for a lot of teams that you couldn't have expected, to be having a great year. As I often say, anybody but the Eagles. That's just kind of where I stand. Got to be honest. And the Eagles fans like to talk a lot of smack. So we'll see. If it comes down to the Eagles and the Cowboys, I'll tilt to the Cowboys. So I hope that makes you feel better. It's been a long time since the Cowboys have literally won anything. Boy, they had a lot of fun running over the Giants yesterday. Let me tell you. And the Giants kind of brought it on themselves, and they were down 28-0 at halftime, and then they decided to get a little cocky in the second half because they scored a few points and was acting a little out of place. And then the Cowboys like, okay, I guess we got to kick your ass again. And so that's what they ended up doing. So
is that it? Is that all you want from me?
If that's all that you want to
I'm leaving tomorrow morning. I want to spend a few minutes with my parents, if that's okay.
You saw the good news about Monday?
No, what's the good news about Monday?
So, guys, Nina Turner will be coming back on the podcast on Monday to talk about among other things. On Thursday, we have your special book guest.
Yeah, I'm reading a book called Dying. It's Dying for Capitalism. And we're going to be having,
aren't we?
Oh, in so many ways. And it really focuses on the triangle between environmental extinction, militarism, and capitalism. And that's sort of the triangle of extinction. Basically, it's a triad of death. And so that's really what this book's about. But yeah, we're going to be speaking with the authors of that on Thursday. I will be ready. I will either be at Moe's on the land if I can get reception, or I will be back home.
Either way, that will be a topic of discussion. In addition to that, we are working through the details of having Dr. Cornel West on as a guest as well. So pay attention to that. That will be a big interview, especially in light of everything that's going on now. I'm not kidding, you've got Jill Stein, who is running for president again as the Green Party ticket. This is actually the third time she's doing it, not second. She's already lobbying to get Cornel West to rejoin the Green Party and do a joint ticket together, which, to be fair, that's not a bad idea. But if that were to happen, he has to lead the ticket. Like, there's no getting around that. Like that.
Are we going to ask Nina about the question? Are we going to ask her the question?
Is she running?
No. What we talked about the is it the thing?
You know the thing.
The thing.
Come on, man.
The thing.
I think
I'm just happy that there's so many people in it. Quite honestly, all of it is shaking shit up. So I'm enjoying all of that. And there's not a chance in hell I'm supporting Joe Biden. It's just there's no way that's going to happen. There's just no way that's going to happen.
We talked about that. We talked about that with Jordan before, and I made it very clear that he was a borderline lame duck president before before what's happening right now in Gaza. Now it's over. Yeah. Now it's over.
It's just one thing after another, but this is it. I mean, the fact that his nickname is Genocide Joe. I'm not going with that.
His name is Genocide Joe. Like, as soon as Trump starts that shit, it's
Has Trump said it too?
No, but he doesn't have to. He'll just wait. He does when he's the nominee, when it's just him. The person you got to honestly look out for is RFK and what role he's going to play. Now, RFK, for whatever reason, it's like he's got truthful Tourette's. It's like he opens his mouth and starts talking about how, well, in the Middle East, we need an outpost for American democracy, and that's what Israel's there for. It's like, well, yeah, you're saying exactly the reason. Just as Joe Biden said when he actually was coherent many years ago, that if Israel didn't exist, we would have to invent one because we need one in the Middle East. I mean, come on, guys, it's not that hard.
Colinello, they're all wrong on. Well, no, Cornel West is okay on it, and I bet Jill Stein is. She probably is. I haven't read her.
And Colin, can you grab before Jen goes? I want to play this clip of Dr. West's speech. I don't know if he was in New York the other day, but it was in solidarity with the Palestinian people. It's about 2 minutes long. It is incredibly powerful, what he was saying, and is probably the most effective response that I have seen so far. If anybody in the chat hasn't seen it, it's really something to behold. And yes, Chris Garrett, RFK, Jesse Ventura is a very real possibility, as our recent guest of the show, Jesse Ventura, pointed out, that he would be RFK's best insurance policy. Well, I'll tell you, if anybody can get RFK straight on Israel, it would be Jesse Ventura. He would be the one guy. And maybe it'll happen. At least that would make the situation. Let me tell you, if there is one thing I can say definitively, if RFK really wants to be a threat to potentially be a contender to actually win the presidency, if he got right on Israel, he'd be a threat.
Yeah, for sure.
Like you said,
that would be all it would take to pull over the leftists, really.
Yeah.
That would pull a chunk of leftists that are just not going to go with that.
All right. Well, I think that's a big deal. All right. Let's see, Colin, if this is the right one. This is it.
Some people for 400 years have been terrorized, traumatized, and hated, and we dish out love warriors and freedom fighters every generation, which means that we stand in solidarity with anybody who's occupied, anybody who's subjugated, anybody who's exploited, and that's why we focus on Gaza at this moment, because a genocidal attack is taking place.
Yeah.
I love him.
10,000 dead and 4,000 precious children. And don't let anybody tell you that because you love Palestinians and Palestinian babies that you hate somebody else. It just doesn't follow what our brothers and sisters. We don't hate Jewish brothers. We don't hate Jewish sisters. We don't hate Jewish siblings. We loathe, we hate a vicious Israeli occupation. We loathe and we hate a vicious siege against Gaza. And the least we can do at this moment of overwhelming barbarity is have a ceasefire. And yet you got these cowards in Washington, D.C. talking about a humanitarian pause. Please get off the crack pipe. Wake up. See the humanity of precious Palestinian brothers and sisters. And the American empire has the nerve in this building to veto a humanitarian pause with our precious Palestinian brothers and sisters being bombed. What kind of country are we?
Indeed.
What kind of people are we? And we send a message to Palestinian brothers and sisters and siblings in Gaza. You are not forgotten. We see you. We focus on you. We give attention to you. And it doesn't mean that we're not concerned with our indigenous brothers and sisters here. It doesn't mean we're not concerned with black folk and brown folk. It doesn't mean we're unconcerned with workers. It doesn't mean that we're unconcerned with Jewish brothers and sisters wherever they are with anti-Jewish hatred. We're not concerned about responding to somebody else. We are bearing witness to the tradition that has been poured in.
Damn TikTok.
What a man.
That's
And
good.
power.
That's definitely good. You
Yeah.
need to put us the other way. This is not good.
Not
I
good
feel
for
very
you?
close. I don't like it. Thank you. It's a
It
little too
wasn't,
close for
it
me.
wasn't me. It was the one-armed man.
It was a little too close for comfort for me.
Sorry about that. I didn't
Yeah,
do that.
that
Colin.
speech needs to get out, but I kind of want to see why when it didn't get cut off.
Well, that was from a TikTok clip because
Yeah.
it wasn't being broadcast. There was somebody who was filming it, and I guess 2 minutes was about how much length of time they actually had.
Well,
But-
hopefully they put it something else.
Oh, that
Hopefully they
speech
put
was
it-
that speech was phenomenal. Like
Yeah.
it was even those 2 minutes
Yeah, it was fire.
is the righteous anger that everybody should have. And he
Oh,
speaks for humanity. If anybody speaks for humanity, it's Dr. West.
I love him.
And it'll be a real tribute and a real a treat to have him on and to converse.
I'm going to do my best to not be stupid.
Well, I'm sure you'll be fine. It's kind of like
I don't know. I really don't know.
well,
Not
it's
when
like,
I keep seeing stuff like that. I don't know. I
Well, it's
feel
like-
he makes me feel stupid.
well, it's like the time that I spoke to Mr. Springsteen, and I was fortunate enough when I was on the phone to be pacing.
God.
So I had my thoughts, kind of flowing.
Okay.
So I wasn't just completely stuck.
No. The fact that you just sort of compared
I didn't compare.
me speaking to somebody of an intellectual greatness at a level that makes me feel somewhat self-conscious to you having a conversation with Springsteen is insane to me. I'm
Well,
just
sorry to
putting
feel
that out there.
Sorry.
just saying.
to feel that way. Yeah.
I get weird. People that are extremely, extremely smart is very, very appealing to me. And so I get like verklempt, like I get kind of worked up about it. And he's just one of those people.
He is a
So-
very well. Again, his
Exactly, Travers. That's what I'm
most Travers
saying.
say that.
I was stupid. I couldn't talk. I was an idiot. I can't even. I'm going to do my best. I don't know. I might not even be able to smoke. I might have to be totally stone cold sober. I don't know.
Crack pipe.
I might have to. I mean, I'm just
been using that line for forever. That's probably
I love it.
been his
Love
that's
it.
always been his. I think that's always been his rallying cry to the downtrodden in the urban Black communities, to basically tell them that crack pipe is what kills our community, and this is why you need to put it down and listen to what I'm saying. And his righteous anger is just so immensely needed at this time. And he is the one person who is speaking to it. And look, if the best path for him, if he really wants to run, because I don't like his chances of being on the ballot next November as an independent candidate. That's just my opinion. I don't think he's going to have anywhere near the funds or the infrastructure that RFK obviously has and is going to have. However, if Jill Stein is serious and would want to have him as a joint ticket, then that's something that I hope he will reconsider. There's nothing wrong.
Can you imagine Cornel West and Jill Stein and then Jesse Ventura and RFK?
That would be something.
I'm just glad that there's things happening.
I'm glad that we're getting to the point where people are saying the system that we have is broken and we need to try another path. And that's the best thing that could come out of this. That people are looking around and saying, if I have to choose between Dr. Cornel West and Joe Biden, I'll pick Dr. West regardless of what the results of the election will be. If you vote your conscience, which is what you should do, because I think we've seen enough over the last 8 years. Forget the last 8 years. I mean, my God. We've seen it for generations now. But we've gotten to the point where I think most people are just politically and to a greater extent economically broken. And they're not going to just say, but Trump or but the GOP anymore. People aren't going to have it. And there's a lot of people who are doing the same thing that are on the political right, saying, I don't want the GOP. A lot of them want Trump, which is why he's likely to win again. But look at the response from a significant portion of the people on the political right when they were talking about Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley, who couldn't scream war in the Middle East from the roof.
Finish them. She's like in some 80s, like she's in some like Chuck Norris movie.
And that's
you know what I mean? Like it's crazy.
And that's why Nikki Haley in particular, that's why we put out that clip about what Vivek Ramaswamy said about her, which is she is just a product of that system. Which is you go in there, you make your money on behalf of the military-industrial complex, and then you do whatever the hell they ask you to do. And the good news is that the overwhelming majority of people are no longer buying it. So with that said, I know you got to roll.
I do. I would like to spend a few minutes with the folk before. I'm only here for one night, and then I have to leave tomorrow.
Any good dinner plans?
They're eating right now while I'm sitting here, but I'm not even particularly hungry. I've been road tripping. I'm kind of, I'm not really hungry anyway, but I just, no, I don't have dinner plans right now.
Well, please say hi to the Pill Chicks for me. Give them my best and
okay.
Have a safe drive back. Obviously, you're going to see Mo and Aaron, and that'll be great.
I am.
And please take some good photos there. That'll be exciting. We've got some.
I sent you a whole bunch of photos.
Yes, I saw them. We'll make some good social media posts for you guys to enjoy on Instagram and Facebook and all the other wonderful sites. See you, Gal.
Bye.
So before we go, I do want to cover one particular story, and we touched base on this on status quo briefly, but I have made it very clear time and again that there's a lot of people who wonder, oh, if only Hillary Clinton had won in 2016. Well, I look around and I realize that even though it's unfortunate that we got stuck with Trump for 4 years, I can't even imagine how much faster we would have accelerated towards fascism if Hillary Clinton was our president. I'm going to play a clip for you guys now that is going to address this key issue of why it really doesn't matter. I mean, clearly, there's issues on the periphery like abortion, Second Amendment, LGBTQ rights, things like that. But when it comes down to the core of the two corporate parties in our country, there is no difference. And when it comes to the leaderships at the top, there really isn't as much. In fact, I have always maintained that Hillary Clinton was worse than Donald Trump. And I'm going to play a clip for you right now to explain just how deeply rooted this vengeful human being really is and how far it goes. Here we go.
I don't
So
think
if this was in place,
Well, this guy got
been gone.
The meme guy got found guilty for posting memes. I don't know the exact details of his court
He got
case.
found guilty?
Yeah, they found him guilty. Which I
And
feel
then
like
what?
is-
What does that mean?
Do you know
Who
the
found him
memes
guilty?
guy? It was a very subtle parody of Hillary Clinton. He was like
Found him guilty.
trying to say with this thing, like to Hillary voters, they could just stay home and text your vote into this number. Wasn't that it?
something like that? Yeah,
But
I'm
And
gonna
it's
try to find
parody.
Yeah,
but they
but-
took it seriously. Or
but-
somebody said, can you believe this is happening?
They found the dude who did it and they fucking arrested him.
that. He
What?
tweeted that out.
Avoid the line.
Avoid the line, vote from home. Text Hillary to 59925. Vote for Hillary and be a part of history. Amazing. I mean, amazing. Amazing.
The federal criminal trial of a man called Douglas Mackey began this week in Brooklyn. It's the single greatest assault on free speech and human rights in this country's modern history. The Biden administration is trying to send a man to prison for saying things they don't like and create a precedent so they can do it to you too. Here's the background. During the 2016 presidential campaign, Mackey posted memes that made fun of Hillary Clinton and her supporters. One of them on Twitter read this way, quote, "Avoid the line, vote from home, text Hillary to 59925. That was obviously a joke, and everyone knew it was a joke. But the FBI, which probably has nothing else to do, tracked down several people who texted that number in Mackey's meme. None of them remembered even doing it. That's according to discovery in the case. So there's no victim here. No one was fooled by what Mackey did. And yet, days after Biden took office, 4 years after Mackey posted that meme, the feds arrested him, and they charged him with conspiring to interfere with the rights of American citizens. He'd go to jail for 10 years for that. That means if you crack a joke on the internet that Democrats don't like, federal prosecutors get to decide you're interfering with an election. It's hard to imagine a more Soviet prosecution than this, but it gets worse. The DOJ's key witness against Mackey is a member of Mackey's group chat from 7 years ago. But DOJ will not let his lawyers, Mackey's lawyers, conduct a full cross-examination of that witness because he works for the FBI.
This guy who goes by the name Ricky Vaughn, you know, like Ricky Vaughn from Major League, this was his, call it a joke, call it whatever you want. He was prosecuted. They tried to give him 10 years in federal prison for this. He's going away for a year. That's pretty scary. I don't remember any stories about Trump doing something like this, although Trump is very likely going to get convicted on something. But even though we don't have a clip of it, and I've only seen a little bit of bits and pieces of it, but Hillary Clinton reveled in this opportunity to dance on this guy's grave, this nobody on social media, and she's making a point to say that this guy deserved to go to prison. And the most amazing part of this story, which many of you may not know, is that it didn't start again until after Biden won. You want to know the date that it became an issue, that this guy got charged? January 21st, 2021. Hillary Clinton was sitting on this for 4 years and insisted that this guy, probably others too, I mean, it's only one that we know about, but insisted that this guy get prosecuted for that meme. And we'll agree to disagree. We'll agree to disagree. When you have that much hatred and resentment, when you've heard all the stories about the lengths that she's willing to go to grind an axe on anybody who gets in her way, who she deems as responsible. I mean, look, whether it was a joke or not, and obviously it was, is it possible that a few people got confused? Maybe. But you know why it's so ridiculous on its face? The second you text that number and it comes up of, oh, yeah, there's nothing here, that's the end of the argument. Now, I will say this, and I will say this to, you don't like my music, and I will say this to anybody. Let's say for the sake of argument that you text that number and then something pops up and it says your vote has been counted. Then you would have an argument. That would technically be a form of election interference, and I would support some type of civil prosecution in that regard, not federally criminal prosecution like this guy who's going to prison for a year. Talk about fascism. My God in heaven. But that's not what's being addressed here. What if that text message actually went somewhere and said, your vote's been counted, you're good. And then they found out afterwards, actually, no, your vote wasn't counted, even though you should know that you can't actually vote digitally, and God forbid that ever becomes a thing. But I'm sure that anyone who was even foolish enough to test this and see, ding, 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 can you vote? No, you can't. Well, that's the end of that. So the idea that this person, Mr. Mackey, got prosecuted for doing this and was found guilty and is going to prison, not even a suspended sentence, not even community service. We're sending you to prison for this. I've said for a long time that she is an irredeemable person. And she isn't. She's irredeemable. It's everything. The idea that she systematically took over the Democratic National Committee after the 2014 midterms on behalf of Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Keep that in mind. For those of you who still don't remember, when Debbie was head of the DNC, she head of the DNC for 6 years. And in the 2014 midterms, the Dems got wiped out. And one of the things that didn't get talked about and why that particular wipeout was so bad was the fact that the Democrats spent in that midterm the amount of money that you would spend in a presidential election. So they got clobbered and they put the DNC, Debbie put the DNC in the hole, millions of dollars. The next thing you know, the Clintons come in, they swoop it, provide the funding, and now the party is effectively theirs. And so that entire 2016 primary was basically a farce. I mean, I was involved early, and I saw everything. So when people say that Hillary won the primary, no, she didn't. It was a systemic, corrupt process from jump. Much like they select candidates, well, they sure as hell selected that Democratic nominee. It doesn't just start in one place. It's everywhere. It's systemic, infiltration of our systems. It's why libertarianism has grown in such leaps and bounds in this country. Because people are afraid of the systemic takeover of the deep state, or whatever you want to call it. You know, shadow government. If you can admit in court that, yeah, we're not obligated to play by the rules, we will just pick who we want, and that'll be that, that's pretty scary. And yet, here we have somebody who was that close to being president of the United States, who decided to make a point on a talk show the other day that a guy who made a meme about being able to vote online for her is going to prison, and deservedly so. I know you guys hate Trump, but my God, Hillary Clinton is a scary freaking person. And if somebody like her had the ultimate power, I mean, everyone's talking now about Trump and what he'll do if he gets back in the White House when it comes to going after his political enemies, and he will. That's not even up for debate. But if Hillary Clinton had the opportunity to go after her political opponents, she would have done so at a much more calculated and dangerous capacity than Donald Trump ever could. The one thing about Trump is that you kind of see everything with him coming. He's not sneaky. He's very in your face. The traitors, the terrible people, we're going after them. Hillary Clinton can literally sit on something for years, and then strike. This happened 7 years ago, and this guy is going to prison, and she's letting you know, I'm the one who made sure he went to prison. And I would make sure a lot of other people go to prison too if I could. It amazes me that she's still around, that the Democratic Party, you know, I shouldn't say that because you never know if, in fact, the Democratic Party, quite frankly, has much of a choice. We still don't know the extent to what debt the Democratic Party owes her. But when you basically take a bankrupt party and turn it into one with a lot of cash, that's a lot of favors, that's a lot of issues that get swept under the rug that nobody talks about. There's a reason why Hillary was never indicted, even though she should have been. And this is how it is. So I want all of you to understand the psychological aspect of politics. It's very hard to wrap your heads around a lot of these issues for a lot of people to fully grasp how somebody like Trump is ready to tee up his second term, because right now he's going to win again. And I want you all to understand that there's a reason why this is happening. It's not because Trump is the greatest guy in the world. It's because this system is so broken, and it's so broken by people like Hillary Clinton, who will not let go. If Hillary's going to hell, like my Congresswoman, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, they're going to try to drag everyone to hell with them. They're not going alone. If they fall, they all fall. Everyone falls. That's the mindset. If I'm going down, you're going to break my fall, because we're all in this together. You're corrupt, and so am I. And that's why, I mean, think of it this way. Talk about the most obvious corrupt person in politics right now. And no, it's not Donald Trump. But take Senator Bob Menendez of my home state of New Jersey. I mean, that's as corrupt can possibly be. In your face, everywhere, no questions asked. And yet, he's still in the Senate. No one is attempting to get him out. You had 20 senators that came out and said, no, I don't think he should be there anymore. You've got one congressman, Andy Kim, who's challenging him in the primary. But, that's going to go by the wayside. You know why? Because I'm going to give you guys a little bit of inside information if you're not privy to this already. New Jersey's own Governor Phil Murphy, his wife is thinking about running for the U.S. Senate in New Jersey. Jen likes the word caucasity when you talk about how out of step these elites are in this country. It reminds me of when Hillary Clinton ran for the U.S. Senate, when she was still the first lady. I'd forgotten that. I'd forgotten that she was the sitting first lady running for the U.S. Senate at the same time. I mean, talk about really overstepping your bounds. And if that happens in New Jersey, it's the same thing. The system is broken. And that's why people are willing to accept the prospect of, hey, Donald Trump 2.0, how much worse can it get? Frankly, I don't care, because that's how a lot of people feel. And I don't blame them for feeling that way. I am tired of how broken the system is, and so should you be. And I think most of us are. And unfortunately, this particular story about Hillary Clinton is not going to get any talk at all. It's just not. It'll have, a few people mention it, but it'll be swept under the rug like everything else. The idea that the Biden administration is thinking about bringing Hillary and Bill in for the purposes of talking about foreign policy, you got to stop being distracted by Donald Trump. He is a problem, but he is not the cause of the problem. As much as people don't like him, there are more people in this country who don't like Forever Washington even more. And on that note, I agree. So, I've had a great crowd tonight. Very grateful for each and every one of you that have showed up. Remember to smash that like button, share, subscribe, do all those wonderful things that we ask you to do. We will be live a little early on Thursday, 12:30. So make sure you're there. For everyone who's here, you don't like my music, Bass Chad, Cat Faye, Garrett, Multimind, of course, Travers, Trace,